keep the keys in a small tin on my desk. The tin squeaks when I open it. Metal does that here. It remembers every hand that ever asked permission. I've worked at St. Agatha's 8 years, long enough to know where the boards lie and where they complain, long enough to feel the bell's mood before it speaks. Morning is ritual. Coffee that tastes like the cupboard, a broom older than my knees, 2 candles by the rail. The match bites air, then softens into sugar and smoke. Stained glass does a slow breathing trick when the sun smears in. The fan ticks once, pauses, then decides to keep trying. I like that sound. It means the place is awake without showing off. Evelyn taps twice on the narthex tile before she steps in. She always does. "Morning, Lincoln." Her voice lands light, like a sparrow that knows where to perch. "Morning." I keep my voice low so it doesn't wake whatever else is sleeping. She sets mail on the sacristy counter and squints at the ceiling like weather's hiding up there. "Pipe's been rattling again downstairs," she says. "Thought it was just me last night, but I heard it when I locked up. Old copper." I give her the easy answer. She gives me the easy nod. Neither of us believes either thing completely. The bell rope is soft with history. I don't pull hard. The first ring is thin, then it fattens and finds its chest. The sound rolls across low houses and fields, touches porches, drifts into kitchens. "Some folks time morning pills by it," Evelyn says. I like the idea of a sound holding someone together. Father Holden keeps to his office. The door stays half open, which is like saying yes and not yet at the same time. He signs what needs signing. He shakes hands a beat too long after Mass. He's kind and careful with the kind. I don't blame him. Careful can be a kind of courage. I sweep aisles. I wipe the pew tops where shoulders leave a quiet sheen. I collect a bulletin, a grocery receipt, a child's glove with a rabbit stitched on the back. The glove is damp the way small hands leave anything they love. I put it in the box with a pen that doesn't write and a key no one admits to missing. The stairs to the basement turn after 4 steps. The rail looks steady, moves a little when you need it most. It smells like damp rope down there. Rope that remembers water you'll never see. We keep a pan of salt against the wall. It clumps when the weather changes. You can read the day underground if you know how to listen to salt. 2 doors wait at the bottom. One holds folding chairs and hymnals with print that makes eyes work too hard. The other is just a door, no label, heavy. Someone painted it the color of old paper, the kind that flakes like it wants to snow. Paint lies about what wood intends. Wood lies less, but only if you've earned a little truth from it. I don't stare at the second door. You don't stare at something you'd rather forget. Upstairs, life happens the way it always does. Kneel, stand, kneel. Heads bow, feet shuffle. A cough learns its place. The town thins after noon. Trucks talk and then don't. A dog argues with nothing and wins. The fan clicks and keeps faith with itself. I head down for a mop I left leaning wrong. I'm halfway when the sound begins. Not a hum. Hums come from lights. This is even, patient, close to quiet, but heavier than quiet. I stop on the landing. My hand finds the rail, and the rail is colder than the day has any right to be. I breathe in. The sound listens. I breathe out. The sound answers. The space between is exact, like a shape someone measured with red string. I take the rest of the steps as if the concrete could learn from my feet. The salt pan is still asleep. The first door minds its business. The second door minds mine. I hold my hand near the paint without touching. The beat is inside. Human slow. Not machine, not trick. It waits between strikes like it's making room for me. I go back up. I wash my hands like that will make anything true again. Hot water turns my skin pink. Soap leaves that tight feeling that says you've tried to scrape something off you can't see. I don't tell Evelyn. She's tired the way good people get tired, and I won't give her a new kind. Holden's door is half again. He looks down when I pass. That's an answer too. Night spreads across the windows and lays a hand on the glass. I lock the side door. I check the sacristy latch. I count the cruets like that could change their number. I sit a minute by the last row. The wood pushes back just enough to remind me I'm still here. Sleep avoids me. The ceiling stain grows into a country I can't name. I count breaths. I lose track. I go back to 1, then 3, then somewhere I can't find again. I tell myself about rats and copper and the talent water has for lying in pipes until it wants attention. I let the telling hold me until the clock decides the hour on its own. The second day, the sound is the same and not the same. Some sounds learn you. This one does. I put my ear to the nave floor where the pews quit and the aisle begins. The wood is warmer than logic. I hear my own heart on one side and the other heart below it, careful, steady, patient like a hand you don't see that stills you without force. After the bell, my right palm stings. Rope burn, small and bright. The line sits there like it knows a boundary I don't. An old woman on the sidewalk touches her chest when the noon ring settles. She smiles the smile people use when they make a deal with fear and win for now. I take the heavy key from the tin and sit with it. It is dark at the teeth. Someone filed it slow, then stopped for breath, then filed again. It smells faintly like rain on iron. There was a note when I first came here. I found it tucked behind a ledger no one reads. Father Vander's hand looked like it was written in a moving car. Custodia, number 14. The heart must remain sealed until grace returns. No date. A message pretending to live outside time. I asked Holden then. He said, without looking up, some things stay sealed because that's how they keep us honest. He said it gently enough that I knew it wasn't up for debate. I let it settle. I believed I had. Late, I take the flashlight down, though the overheads work fine. Light in your hand behaves better than light in the ceiling. Dust looks like snow that forgot how to fall. The second door waits. I count to 7, because 7 is a number my mouth can hold without breaking. On 3, the beat finds me. On 5, it considers. On 7, I am still here, and so is the door. My forehead rests against wood. Cool, then warm, then cool again. The way a hand takes your temperature without saying it out loud. The beam wobbles and throws a second of my hand on the opposite wall. It looks like someone reaching for me from inside. Then it looks like what it is. The room breathes back what I give it. I step away so it can breathe on its own. Rain comes in hard. Salt wakes and turns to stones. The basement learns a hospital smell no basement should have. Clean, spare, sharp in the nose. The beat softens when it should sharpen. The silence between beats grows long enough to put a thought inside, and then seals before the thought can stand up. On the third morning, I check the safe. Same pocket. A second note I have not seen sits where it must have always been. Travis, Archivist, Order of the Broken Wing, arrives Sunday. The year blurs. Maybe Evander wrote the number too close to faith. Maybe Sunday came and left a century ago. In churches, time is a practiced liar. Holden fills the doorway. He carries the expression men carry when they have already made peace with the answer they'll give. Let it rest, Lincoln. The words are a hand on a shoulder. They weigh what a hand weighs. I heard something. My voice doesn't sound like mine. Old copper. He gives me a smile made of duty and tries to lend me the half of it that still believes itself. When he goes, the room gets bigger by an inch. Or I do. I'm not the right judge. I take the key. The lock upstairs feels like any lock. The lock below does not. Teeth meet as if they remembered drills I never ran. The turn is smooth enough to accuse me. The door opens a thumb, then a finger, then a hand. Cold has weight in there. It presses with the authority of rules no one wrote down. The room is smaller than my fear built. Table, shelf. A plate with a candle that forgot to be a candle. The smell again. Clean, almost sun on linen. It hurts in a way that cleans you. In the corner, the box. Black Edges careful, wax seal the color of fruit that learned to last. A ring pressed once, then pressed until the wax understood. The cross in that seal isn't ours. Its arms are too long, its lines too thin. It looks like a map symbol for a road that leads out of a map. I take one step. The beat wakes, not louder, present. It adjusts to my notice. When I look away, it becomes a building noise. When I look, it becomes itself. The candle flares without flame. It leans, then leans back, as if the room inhaled for me. The flashlight trembles. The circle slides across a wall that refuses to remember my outline. My hand reaches without my permission. The wax under my fingers gives like it's been waiting to stop pretending to be stone. Pressure rises through my palm, not heat, not cold. A pressure like a crowd moving you toward a door you've secretly wanted to reach. The seam shows itself. The lid lifts the way lids lift when they remember obedience. Glass receives the beam, clear, not cloudy. The shape inside is a heart, not drawn, not carved, made. It holds light the way a hand holds a bird you mean to free. It beats. The room agrees. It beats again. The plate hums a tight note I feel in my teeth and in my wrists. I put my palm on the glass. Cold climbs my skin, then empties itself of temperature. My chest gives up its rhythm and accepts another. My breath leaves in a soft white I can't justify. The candle bends toward the heart as if the heart were wind. I am not afraid. That is the wrongness that sits highest in me. The rhythm slows. It finds the count I keep when I kneel alone. Something small crawls under my skin, wrist to elbow, elbow to heart, not pain, more like a memory traveling home. The walls return my breath as a whisper that might be mine, might not. The shape of a name forms in my mouth and never leaves it. I think of Michael for no reason I can prove. I lift my hand. The rhythm holds. The glass glows in the way glass glows when it's decided not to need a source. The candle writes itself, then shivers, then becomes ordinary fire again. And then the room stops. Beat, breath, hum, everything sits, everything waits. I lower the lid because not lowering it feels like a pride I can't afford. The wax will never be itself again. Neither will I. The door closes. The key turns like it learned me. The salt is stone. My fingers remember the shape of the heart, as if they were made for that purpose and forgot, and have just now recalled their work. Upstairs, red from the glass, paints a stripe where red never reaches at this hour. Blue leans farther than blue should. The fan ticks and keeps faith. Evelyn appears and studies my face like a page with a smudge. You okay? I'm fine. The word breaks inside me and I swallow the pieces. She glances toward the stairs and looks away so she won't be rude to them. You hear the pipes again? Old copper, I say, and the air accepts the lie the way a church accepts dust. It settles everywhere until you decide it's part of the room. I didn't go back that night. I walked the cemetery instead, slow rows, stones breathing under thin moss, names that used to be voices, dates that used to be plans. The bell tower kept its shape above everything like a finger held to lips. Don't. Not yet. In the office, I opened Evander's ledger. It was a stubborn book. The cover felt greased with a century of careful hands, edges curled like leaves that wanted to hold their shape. There were blank pages in the front, then pages that weren't blank anymore once I tilted the lamp. Pencil ghosts climbed out. Pressure without lead. Lists. A column of numbers, then a single word repeated until it lost its meaning. Custodia. Another page held a map drawn by someone who knew the town before sidewalks. Our church sat like a nail pinning the paper. A dotted line ran from the nave to a circle that didn't exist on any plan I'd seen. Then, a name at the bottom in a smaller hand. Travis. The letter T cut the page like a knife. I turned another sheet. Tucked between two leaves was a thin envelope the color of old teeth. I didn't open it. I breathed on it. My breath fogged the surface and cleared. I slid the paper out. the way you might lift a wafer from a tongue that wasn't ready. Inside, a card, not fancy, not official, a date that could have been any century, Sunday. The words in ink. Archivist will relieve the custodian for a season, keep the heart asleep. Light provokes it, breath persuades it, prayer confuses it. Light, breath, prayer. We carry all three like we know what to do with them. Holden knocked on the door jamb and didn't come in. "Could use you at the hall tomorrow," he said. "Food boxes. The truck's late, but people won't be." "I'll be there." He looked at the book, then at my hand over the card. "Old records," he said, as if naming it made it smaller. "Some things read us when we read them." "Do you ever hear it?" He took too long to answer, which was an answer. "I hear a lot of things, Lincoln. None of them wrote me a letter." He left me with the room's hum and the card. I copied the line about breath persuading. I didn't know if copying made it more true or less. I put the envelope back where it had been found by someone who wasn't me. That's the math you learn here. Find, then unfinding. Touch, then unmark. The hall filled with bodies the next morning. Paper bags, thin coats, praise that sounded like excuses for needing help. Evelyn ran the clipboard. She was quicker than the pens. She touched wrists when she handed people their numbers. "You all right?" she'd say, and make it sound like a statement instead of a question. Holden moved between tables like a boat that knows its river. He lay a palm on a shoulder and people steadied under it. I lifted boxes, counted cans, tied knots. Work is its own prayer when you let it be. A man with a scar like a comma under one eye said, "Bell sounded good this week." I nodded. He added, "Felt like it held something off." He didn't say what. We never say what. Maybe we don't know. Maybe we do, and we're careful with the knowing. That night I took the heavy key and the flashlight and nothing else. No words prepared, no promises I could break. The salt had turned to small cliffs along the pan. The air was colder and thicker, like the room had learned a new rule and wanted to see if I could obey it. I unlocked the second door and didn't step in right away. The threshold was a line, and I don't cross lines like a hero. I cross like a man who knows how lines become doors and doors become choices you can't walk back through. Inside, the box waited as if it had been working on the art of waiting while I was gone. I set the light on the table and angled it up. The beam made a low hill in the dust, and then the hill became a sky I could inhale. My breath left visible for a second. I listened to it leave. I listened to it return. I didn't touch the lid. I touched the table. The wood remembered too many hands to mind one more. I told the room something under my breath that wasn't a prayer and wasn't not a prayer. It was permission, maybe. It was apology, probably. It was a man saying he's sorry to a thing he can't name for something he hasn't done yet. I lifted the seal. It gave easier than before. That worried me more than it should have. The lid rose. The glass waited. The heart inside did the quiet work hearts do. Slow, patient, unmoved by my small theater. The card had said, "Light provokes, breath persuades, prayer confuses." I switched off the flashlight. The dark settled without malice. A trace glow lived in the glass the way a coal remembers fire. I let out one long breath over the heart. The glass fogged and cleared the way the card did. The beat changed by the width of a thought. Not faster, not slower, closer. My breath returned across my cheek as a warmer air than belonged in that room. I whispered one word because my mouth needed to hold a shape. Mercy. I didn't intend to. The sound didn't go far. It didn't have to. The room handed it back to me with a small adjustment, a note I hadn't placed on it. The beat aligned for 3 strikes. Then waited to see if I'd keep time or lose it. I wanted to pray and didn't. I wanted not to and did. Words I've known all my life lifted their heads and looked at me like old dogs that might not come when called. "If I've done wrong," I started, then stopped, not because a voice cut me off, because a voice answered the part of me that didn't speak. It didn't use words. It used a temperature. It used a pressure that rose through my palm and into my arm the way a river finds a braid. Glass under skin, skin under glass. For a moment I couldn't tell which remembered which. I pressed my hand to the heart, and it wasn't cold this time. It was no temperature at all. It was the feel of shadow in noonlight. The beat pushed into my palm until my own pulse surrendered the job. My chest took a different count. My lungs argued once, twice, then agreed. The room leaned in with me. The candle's wick breathed without fire. The plate hummed a quiet letter under the tone of breath. Not a word. A letter. The letter that holds other letters up. I didn't faint. My knees didn't lock. My eyes didn't burn. That would have made sense. Instead, my senses made new shapes of old things. Wood felt like paper that had learned to be bone. Dust felt like snow that knew my name. My shirt weighed more over my heart. My right hand tingled where the rope had burned it, and the tingling moved toward my wrist like a small animal that wanted out. A whisper rose in the corner of the room. It wasn't from the box. It wasn't from me. It was the sound air makes when it learns a prayer and tries it for the first time. It threaded through the beat, tested the rhythm, then fell into it as if it had been practicing in another room. "I'm here," I said, and hated the words as soon as they left me. They were too big for a voice that small. Something answered, not English, not any tongue I've held, but the answer knew the shape of "I'm here," and corrected it back toward "I'm listening." I thought of Michael and didn't say the name. A weight lifted in my wrist as if the silence had been carrying it for me and finally set it down. The glass brightened a hair. It wasn't light. It was understanding made visible. I held as steady as a man can when his heart is being paced by a thing that isn't a machine. The beat slowed to a count I keep when confession seats are empty and the nave holds only wood and breath. The whisper braided with it. Not a hymn, not a tune. A line walked slowly. The kind of line you'd use to tie a boat you don't own to a dock you can't see. I wanted to ask what it wanted. That was the temptation. Make order. Make a list. Make a rule. I've loved rules. They keep your hands busy while your soul remembers what not to touch. I didn't ask. I let the room tell me what it had dragged me here to know. Evander's note had said, "Keep it asleep until grace returns." I had been told to keep. I had been told to wait. The card said, "Breath persuades." I watched my breath fog the glass again and clear. The beat agreed. Not with me. With a part of me I don't run. I understood something then. Not an answer. A fracture. The kind that lets light in without promising heat. If mercy was in that box, it hadn't been buried for my safety. It had been buried because we didn't know what to do with it awake. I took my hand away, and the beat held. It didn't punish me. It didn't beg me either. It kept going like it had kept going in the dark without my notice longer than I've been alive. The whisper thinned, then doubled itself in the walls, as if the room wanted me to know it could speak without me and be perfectly understood by someone else entirely. "Tell me what to do," I said before I could stop myself. The answer was a breath across my knuckles and a pressure behind my eyes. A slow yes that wasn't permission and wasn't command. A yes like gravity. Not yours. Always there. I lifted the lid higher. A wash of colder air pressed my shirt into my chest. The candle bent backward again, as if the room inhaled through me. The plate sang a little louder. The note wasn't a letter anymore. It was the space between letters. I closed my eyes because the room was brighter with them shut. Hands steady, knees steady, voice quiet, heart owned by something kind that didn't need me and kept me anyway. That was the summit. Not victory, not surrender. A keeping. I closed the lid because I'm small, and that's what small men do when they're trusted with something large. I didn't press the seal. I couldn't make it honest again. I stood very still until the beat retreated into the walls and the room gave me back my chest 1 inch at a time. When I stepped away, My body weighed what it had weighed before, and also more. The door shut without squeal. The lock turned like it had learned a new word and wanted to show me. On the stairs, the fourth tread took my breath the way it always does. I let it. I let everything be what it insisted on being. Upstairs, the nave was a lung refilling after a long swim. Red laid a thin bar across the aisle again, and blue leaned in from a window that should have faced the wrong way. I touched the rail to steady a world that wasn't falling. Evelyn's cup waited near the book. It had cooled to the temperature of a hand that left minutes ago. I held it anyway. Steam didn't rise. My breath did. I watched it drift and fade and return. I stood very still and listened to the quiet thing that had moved into me and set a chair down. It didn't say my name. It didn't have to. The thing inside me behaved itself for a while. I breathed, I worked, I prayed when the calendar told me to. The bell rang and the town stayed upright. Days stacked again like hymn pages glued by wax. I almost believed routine could file the edges off a miracle. Evelyn noticed first. "You look thinner," she said, tapping her pen against the clipboard. "You eating or just ringing bells for supper?" "I'm fine." That lie comes easy. She looked ready to argue, then sighed like the effort wasn't worth stealing from God. "You hear anything strange again?" "Just the weather," I said, though weather shouldn't have a heartbeat. Holden didn't ask anything. He watched me the way men watch fences in wind. Half sure they'll hold, half sure they won't. He spent more time outside, walking the graves, whispering whatever priests whisper when they're out of words. At night I dreamed in color that didn't belong to our world, gold too white to be safe, shadows with edges that hummed. I woke with my chest aching like it had borrowed someone else's rhythm and couldn't pay it back. The pillow smelled faintly of candle smoke. I hadn't lit any. I started hearing the heartbeat in different places, not loud, not threatening, just present. Behind the organ pipes, in the hollow of the stair rail, in my wrist when I poured water into the cruet. Every beat matched mine, then left me half a second behind. It made me feel like a man trying to keep up with his own shadow. Once, during Mass, it pulsed under the floor while Holden spoke the benediction. The congregation bowed. I stayed still. I felt the pulse climb through the soles of my shoes, into my knees, into my chest. The cross on my collar burned cold. No one else flinched. The choir finished their last note and silence dropped like dust. The quiet after holy sound is always heavier. This time, it pressed. That night I went down again, not with a key, just with ears. The lock turned itself. Or maybe I never locked it right. The air past the door was still, heavy as sleep that doesn't rest. The box sat as I'd left it, unsealed, undecorated, honest. I didn't touch it. I didn't have to. The glow under the lid was faint as a remembered smile. The beat came slower now, as if tired from generosity. I said one word to the dark. "Thank you." It felt wrong to thank anything I couldn't name, but not saying it felt worse. No answer came, unless silence counts. Maybe silence is the only answer the divine can give without lying. In the morning, the salt pan was full again. New grains. Too clean, too white, like it had snowed from inside the wall. I touched one mound, and it collapsed into powder that didn't cling to my finger. It smelled faintly of iron and rain. I left it alone. People came for confession that week. I sat nearby, listening through the booth slats as they named their small wounds, lust, envy, lies about money, ordinary sins that fit in ordinary lives. None of them sounded mortal. I envied them for that. My own sin didn't have a name that fit on paper. Holden preached about grace the next Sunday. His voice cracked halfway through. He said, "Grace is what God uses when he can't use reason." The congregation laughed the small laugh polite people give a tired man. I didn't. I heard the pulse behind his words, matching the rhythm of the sermon. When the last amen settled, I swear the walls exhaled. After service, he called me into the office. The door was more closed than usual. He stared at his hands. "You've been here early, staying late. You should rest." "I sleep fine." He shook his head. "You don't look like you do." Then softer. "Some burdens aren't meant for keepers." "I didn't mean—" He stopped me with a palm. "Intentions don't clean wounds, Lincoln. They just explain them." He looked toward the window where light made the dust honest. "Whatever's down there, leave it. Some gifts rot when opened." I nodded. That was easier than truth, but my hand still carried the ghost of the glass heart's weight, and ghosts don't drop when you nod. Days turned thin again. I caught myself whispering to empty rooms, not words, just the shape of breath that once matched another breath. I found a feather on the altar rail one morning, small. White, so pure it looked blue at the edges, no birds in the rafters. I left it where it fell. By evening it was gone. One night the electricity blinked out across town. The church fell into black except for a pale shimmer seeping between the boards over the basement door. I didn't move toward it. I just listened. No heartbeat, only the faint hum of stone remembering sound. Then, quietly, a single whisper, low, steady, patient. My name, not loud enough for ears, but deep enough for bones. I sat in the aisle until dawn. When the power returned, the shimmer was gone. Dust hung like forgiveness. Evelyn found me later, sweeping where no one had walked. "You all right, Lincoln?" "I think so. You sound like a man answering a question he hasn't heard yet." She smiled, but her eyes stayed worried. "Maybe take a day off." "I'll try." She left a wrapped sandwich on my desk. I didn't eat it. Hunger felt distant, like an appointment I'd forgotten to confirm. I started recording myself that week, not a diary. Just voice. I said dates, weather, small details. How many candles burned out before noon. How long the bell took to settle after ringing. I told the tape that the heartbeat had moved into memory now. I said it the way a man says grace before a meal he knows he doesn't deserve. On the third night, I listened back. Between sentences, soft, almost kind, a second voice breathed with mine. Not echo, not delay. Breathing, keeping pace. When I stopped speaking, it didn't stop. It waited. Then, faint, one word, mercy. I rewound, played it again. The same breath, the same word. It didn't scare me. It shouldn't have comforted me either, but it did. Maybe we mistake recognition for comfort. I tried recording again. "If you can hear me," I whispered, "tell me what I'm supposed to do." The answer wasn't sound. It was the bell upstairs moving once on its own, one slow roll of air and metal. Not loud, just final. The tape ended with that tone. I didn't speak again. The next morning, Holden didn't come in. Evelyn said he'd gone to visit the bishop in the city. She didn't know when he'd return. I knew better. Some departures are just well-dressed disappearances. I cleaned the nave until my hands forgot they were hands. When I knelt to collect the wax flakes, my knee brushed something warm. The floor shouldn't be warm. I lifted my palm. The warmth stayed on my skin, spreading, pulsing once. A heartbeat borrowed, given back. I closed my eyes and whispered, "I understand." Whether I did or not didn't matter. The church felt lighter that day, as if the air had shed its weight and left grace behind like dust that glows instead of dulls. People said the bell sounded different, softer, kinder. Maybe it did. Maybe we finally learned to listen for the spaces between strikes instead of the strikes themselves. That night I locked every door except one. The second door stayed as it was, closed, unsealed, honest. I left the flashlight on the table inside, beam pointing at nothing. "Light persuades," the note had said. Maybe persuasion works both ways. I sat in the pew closest to the stairs. No candle, no sound. I thought about Evander, About Holden, about Travis who might have lived 100 years ago or last week, men who tried to cage mercy and call it stewardship. Maybe I was just the next fool on the list. Maybe mercy needed fools. Maybe that was the only way it could move freely, through hands that didn't understand enough to stop it. When I finally rose, my knees cracked like old hinges. The building answered with its usual sighs. The world outside was the same and entirely different. I turned off the recorder, then turned it on again. My voice came quiet, but sure. "I'm not afraid," I said. "Not because I'm brave, because fear's job is done." I waited for the second voice. It didn't come. Just the gentle hum of tape spinning, the soft sound of breath that could have been mine or not. I stopped it there. The cassette clicked. That was the end of the third confession. The tape ends in silence, but silence doesn't mean empty. It's just another kind of sound that forgot how to announce itself. I keep the recorder beside me now, not to catch voices, just to prove I still make one. 3 days since Holden left, 3 nights since the bell moved on its own. I haven't gone down again. I don't think I need to. The heartbeat hasn't followed me this time. It's simply with me. Not loud, not foreign. It lives under my ribs like it was always there, just waiting to be named. Evelyn asked if I was sleeping. I told her yes. She smiled and said I looked rested. Maybe I do. Maybe peace looks like exhaustion seen from the right distance. Sunday came gray. Rain without sound, the kind that falls sideways so you never see it coming, only feel the air rearranging. Fewer people in the pews, the old men in their hats, the same widow with the purple scarf, one child sleeping against her mother's shoulder, drooling on hymn paper. Life doing its best impression of faith. I rang the bell myself. It started slow, like it was testing my intent. The tone that came out wasn't the one I knew. Softer, yes, but clearer. Like someone else inside the metal had decided to help. The vibrations ran through the rope into my arm, up the scar on my palm, into my chest. It didn't hurt. It aligned. When the final tone faded, the quiet after felt holy in a way sermons never manage. Even Evelyn didn't speak for a while. She just sat in the front row, hands folded, eyes open, watching dust spin in the beam from the high window. That's the kind of prayer that never ends, only pauses for breath. After Mass, I walked the aisles alone. Each step carried the faintest echo, as if the wood remembered my rhythm. I stopped at the rail and looked up. The red pane in the window, the one that never caught morning light before, glowed faintly though the sky outside was dull. It pulsed once, slow, deliberate, merciful. In the sacristy, I found the feather again, the same one. Or its twin, white with blue edges, lying on the table where we keep unused candles. No draft could have brought it there. I didn't pick it up. Some signs lose meaning when handled. I just nodded to it, like you'd nod to a stranger who looks strangely familiar. Later, I opened the tin on my desk. The keys still inside. The heavy one darker than the rest, teeth worn smooth. I closed the lid without touching it, not because I feared it, because I didn't need to prove anything anymore. The door below would stay closed, and still it would remain open in the ways that mattered. That night I recorded one last time. My voice sounded calm, the way water sounds when it has finally decided which direction is down. I haven't heard the heartbeat, I said, or maybe I hear it everywhere now. The difference is gone. The walls breathe steady. The salt stays dry. Maybe that means it's content. I paused to listen. The tape hummed softly, wheels turning in darkness, then a sound. Not words, not even breath, just a faint exhale, like air leaving lungs that had been waiting centuries to do so. I whispered back, "Thank you." The reply came as a single tap from somewhere above, the bell tower or the recorder itself. A small sound, but it filled the room with weight. Then silence again. I left the recorder running and stepped outside. The rain had stopped. The sky above the steeple glowed pale, neither dawn nor dusk. Streetlights blinked out one by one. The town was breathing with me. Every roof, every stone, every unseen heart. I walked to the cemetery gate. The grass was slick but not cold. The air smelled like the inside of a prayer. I stood among names carved by forgotten hands and realized none of them looked dead, not really. Each stone held the same small hum I'd felt beneath the church floor. Everything in this place, every loss, every silence, kept time with the same patient mercy. I said nothing for a long while. My breath made small ghosts in the air. When they vanished, I didn't feel alone. On the walk back, I looked up at the tower. The bell swayed once without wind, just a small motion, enough for the clapper to kiss the rim. The note that came down was soft, human soft, a heartbeat made of metal. One strike, only one. Inside, the lights flickered. The cassette clicked to an end. That sound, too, felt like breath finishing its task. I sat at the desk and listened to the stillness that follows completion. I thought about Evander sealing the box, Holden warning me, Travis writing his notes to no one, each of us part of the same misunderstanding. We thought faith was meant to protect us from the divine. Maybe it was only ever meant to prepare us for it. The glow through the stained glass faded as clouds gathered. I knelt on the cold tile, the way I was taught, hands together, not tight, head bowed, not in fear, but gratitude. The words that came weren't rehearsed. They rose on their own, gentle, sure. If mercy was sleeping, it's awake now, and it's not angry. I let the silence answer. The floor under me was warm again, pulsing once beneath my knees. I smiled, small, tired, real. Maybe it was never meant to stay buried. Maybe grace just waited for someone foolish enough to believe. The candle on the rail flickered though no window was open. One last flame bending, breathing, then standing still. The bell in the tower gave a final sigh of metal, low and tender. And then, nothing. The kind of nothing that listens back. I left the recorder on the desk, still rolling, still humming. If anyone ever finds this tape, they'll hear that last stretch of quiet. They might call it noise. They might call it proof. For me, it's prayer. Because somewhere in that silence, I swear, he still listens.
Maybe mercy never died.